Hello, welcome to the Courageous Self-Care podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On this show, we talk about self-care that moves the needle. And so that means self-care that definitely goes beyond bubble baths, chocolate, and wine. And please continue to enjoy those things. I'm not saying that they're not good. They're definitely good. I enjoy a good bubble bath as much as the next person. But if those are your only strategies, they are temporary, and unfortunately, your problems won't go down the drain with the bubbles. So you do need to do a little bit more than just those three options. And so that's when we get into what I call courageous self-care, which means doing the tough stuff, learning about who you are, finding out about that glorious person, going on the journey and enjoying both what we would call the good and the bad, and embracing life in a courageous way. We are doing a series of Festival Insider interviews, which means that it is the time of year where the Courageous Self-Care Festival is happening. It's a local event here in Calgary where we've got a dozen different speakers. We've got a wellness marketplace. We've got all sorts of prizes and amazing awesomeness of a day where we get to connect in person with people and look each other in the eyes and give each other hugs and be an amazing energy. And I thought having this podcast, it's a great opportunity to share these incredible people with you, no matter where you are in the world, because they are just too fantastic to keep to myself. So today I have with me Melody Chardon. Melody, welcome to the show.
Hi, Christina. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Super excited to be here and to be a part of the Courageous Self-Care Festival again this year.
Yay!
Last year was amazing, and like you spoke to, the energy in the room was super amazing. That's what I appreciated the most, I think, about the festival.
Yeah, it was like just all the energy that we put into creating it together and reaching out and getting people to come and then being really intentional about what the event was about. You're right, it did create this really special energy, and I had people coming to me in tears throughout the day saying, I didn't know how much I needed this until now that I'm here. Thank you. So yeah, it was a beautiful day. So let's do it again.
Awesome.
So Melody, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you love to do.
I am a loss and life transition coach and a mother. And I'm not sure if my business or my family teaches me my greatest lessons. What I've noticed in the last couple of years is that as I evolve, my business evolves, and as my business evolves, I evolve. So I've been working with women who are in transition for about 10 years now. So I provide coaching and support for people who are going through life change, and specifically on the emotional side of change is what I've been working on, and that's what I love. It definitely fills my tank to be able to support people who are going through change.
Yeah, I love how you said that the business and you are ever evolving, and I noticed that as well. It is I learn a lot from my business, and I learn a lot about myself through my business, and then I feel like I become even better of a person, and then my family benefits from that. So being a mom, it's great to have a business where you're always learning about yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of lessons, and I think the biggest one for me that aligns with my business is the ability to let go. So being able to let go maybe of certain ideas about what I have for the business, when I recognize that I'm pushing too hard, if I let go, then things flow in. And I think it's similar when we lose someone or something we love, we typically want to hang on to that, and it's hard to let go. But once we let go, there's something new comes in. And so there's a real freedom in being able to let go, and it's not easy.
No, it's not easy, that's for sure. So tell us a little bit more about what you'll be sharing at the festival and why that's important to you.
So this year, I'm going to share the 3 facets of grief for people. So recognizing that grief affects us at a physical, mental, and emotional level. So a lot of people see grief as just an emotional experience, but it's all 3 of those facets, and how each one, it's like a new layer of the grief, or they all come at once. And so I typically say it's like waves of grief will come, and some of them will be like crashing to the shore, and some of them will just ripple in. And it's helping people to understand all of what's going on in their mind, in their heart, and in their body.
And when people have this understanding, how does that make going through the grieving process different?
Well, what I'm calling it now is conscious grieving. And there's an ebook on my website that is Conscious Grieving, a modern day guide through grief and loss.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to recognize what's going on in the body and being able to create the space to care for yourself in those times. A lot of it is being able to feel what's going on and give it some sort of an expression.
And what is people's typical approach to grief if they're not really being conscious about it?
Chocolate and wine. Yeah. So things we typically do are numb, avoid, or suppress.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't want to talk about it because it causes us pain. We don't want to think about it because it causes us pain. And we certainly don't want to feel it because it causes us pain. And so if we can accept and embrace those thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and even the physical pain, if we can understand where it's coming from and embrace it, then we can support ourselves in having it move through us.
Yeah, we tend to do so much to avoid the unpleasant emotions, whereas if we actually turn towards them and move into them, it's not generally as bad as we thought, and it doesn't last as long.
Yeah, and that's the key. So some people that I've worked with have been carrying their grief for 30 years.
Oh my gosh.
And they don't know, right? So they think that they've, intellectually they think that they're over it. But that's the key word, is getting over it. That's what people have been taught, right? The majority of people have been told to get on with it or get over it. And really what I'm learning and continue to learn is there's no way over grief. It's through it. It's through the experience. And so then it's the conscious awareness that we bring to the things that we're doing. Because cookies aren't all bad and chocolate's not all bad. It's the awareness that we have when we are going through the process.
Yeah. Melody, why is this work so important to you?
Oh, well, I've seen and experienced a lot through my own life and through my clients. And I see grief and unresolved grief as the underlying contributing factor to anxiety, depression, and suicide.
Yeah, really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so grateful that you are someone who wants to help people turn and head through it rather than have it rule their lives from an unconscious level. And so grateful that you're going to be speaking about that at the festival, because I don't know if that's how people would typically think of self-care, but absolutely it is. It's so important. And like I said, it goes way beyond bubble baths, chocolate, and wine, so that you're not using Band-Aids to get through life, right?
Right.
So I'd love to talk a little bit more about courage and self-care. So I'm curious, Melody, what does self-care mean to you personally?
Well, I can share a very real, maybe even a little bit raw example of self-care and grief and conscious grieving. So a dear friend of mine passed away last week, and his funeral is today. And last night I was inspired to make cookies. I haven't made cookies for a really long time. And in the process of making the cookies and the awareness that I had of making the cookies, I realized that this is one way I express love. And I remembered that I used to take cookies into work when I was working with this friend. And that was a way that I expressed love to the team that I was working with. And so last night, as I was making the cookies, I shared some of what I was feeling with my daughters so that they would see me in my grief.
Yeah.
And they held the space for me. And my oldest daughter came and gave me a hug. And, so now I've created the safety in our home for us to have our emotions and be in the experience. And then, of course, when I was all done, we had tea and cookies together. So there was another connection point of, sitting and being with each other and expressing love, but also receiving love from my daughters.
That is such a powerful story. I love it. I feel like cookies really can change the world. They can solve a lot of problems. Well, not solve problems, but help with them. And on obviously a deeper level, I love that it's so powerful to teach by example. And to welcome all emotions is a really courageous form of self-care. And then to pass that on to your kids, there's just so many layers of that story that are incredibly useful. And I love that you brought consciousness to it and realized, oh, underneath the grief actually is love. And creating that connection with your friend who passed away, and then with your daughters and with yourself through the art of making the cookies, so much love and connection there. So I love that story. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
And I want to talk a little bit more about courage and be in the energy of courage. And for that, I'd love to hear something that not a lot of people know about you.
Well, I was struggling with that one. I don't really know. So the one thing that I came up with is that my eyes leak when I laugh. And so often people will think that I'm crying and I'm actually laughing. And what I like about sharing that story is that tears are a natural expression of love. And so when we are grieving and we are crying, if we can even in our mind translate that to the expression of love for the person that we've lost, it's not as painful. But we've created grief to be this painful, sad thing that we need to avoid. And if we can see the tears as the natural expression and the energy moving through us and the truest form of love, I think it's a little easier to embrace the grief.
Yeah, that was making me think of something I just learned about Taoist funerals, I think, somewhere in the Middle East, in Eastern tradition. Their funerals are 3-day events, and the first day is devoted to crying, and they actually have professional criers. So everyone gathers who has lost the loved one, and they cry. They devote a day to crying. And the professional criers are trained to notice when the energy is ebbing and flowing, and when if people aren't really feeling their emotions, the professional criers will start crying and wailing, and it will get everyone going again so that they can fully express the pain of the loss. And that's how they honor those tears for an entire day, which just blew my mind.
You can imagine how depleted you would feel and also energized, right? So you release all of that sad emotion, and then a wave of new life and new love would come in.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I know when I go to a funeral and I do cry, I get a headache. And it is partly because of, sometimes we hold it for a while and then we express it. And so it's all the body responding to that, the stress and the pain of holding it in. But on that, the professional criers, I don't want to suggest, but maybe that will be my next profession. I don't know. I do like a good cry. One of my coaches, though, suggested borrowed tears. And so for those who have a hard time getting to that point of crying, if you watch a really sad movie, it could support you in releasing the energy and the tears that you're hanging on to. Sometimes we just need that little bit of a catalyst to get us going, like the professional criers.
Yeah, or art, like you're saying. I feel like sometimes, especially with my kids, I notice if they've been holding something in and then another event happens that helps release whatever they were holding in. Like it might be a movie and they end up crying a lot, or it might be another small incident and then there's a blow up of anger that they were holding in actually about something else. And so it's valuable to, that idea of borrowed, or knowing that it doesn't have to be about that particular incident. You can express those emotions from a different source, I guess, what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, and the emotions that do express themselves typically aren't about the thing.
Right.
So that, the thing is not the thing, it's underneath.
Yeah.
And so when we are carrying unresolved grief from the past, that will get stirred up with a new loss event.
Yes.
So if we're incomplete with the past, anything that's happening in this moment will trigger everything that's been held on to from the past.
Right, because triggers are always an invitation to do some deeper healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on what you said about art too. I went to the ballet on Saturday, and there was a death scene on stage. And the way they portrayed grief was so intense for me, maybe because of the experience I'm in right now.
Yes, right.
But I could feel it in my body. I could feel what that devastating news would feel like. And so I thought that was amazing and brilliant the way that they did it.
Oh, yes, art is so important. So Melody, I know that people are going to be curious about Melody, I know that people are going to be resonating with what you're talking about, and it's going to bring up stuff for them. So if they're not able to attend the festival and hear your talk, how can they connect with you?
They can go to my Facebook page or my website. Both are named Diamond Light Leadership. And that name comes from the metaphor of a diamond. So diamonds are formed by extreme pressure and upheaval. And I believe that we become more resilient and brilliant with the upheaval of life when it changes. So that's Diamond Light Leadership. And there's also an ebook on my website that they can download.
Beautiful. Thank you. So do reach out to Melody. Go check out her ebook, because a world of people filled with unresolved grief is a tough world to live in, and we want to shift that so that we are nurturing ourselves and not having these triggers and moving through that grief courageously. Right, Melody?
Absolutely. That would be one of the highest forms of courageous self-care right there, is to allow ourselves to feel what we feel.
Absolutely. And what I want to invite you to is, if you are local or willing to travel to join us at the Courageous Self-Care Festival and hear Melody's talk and my talk about ditching overwhelm and being calm in chaos, then please join us. And I want to make it really easy for you by gifting you a free ticket. So you can get that at selfcareticket.com, or you can click on the link in the show notes and access your ticket there. You just click on any of the activate your ticket buttons, enter your name and email, and you will get all the info that you need to come and really give yourself a day of deep, deep nourishment and me time beyond your wildest dreams. Melody, thank you for being here today and sharing your wisdom and energy with us.
Thank you, Christina.
You are so welcome. And listeners, wherever you are in the world, thank you for tuning in. I honor you for giving yourself this time to gather information and be in this great energy of courageous self-care. And I invite you to come back again soon. Lots of insider interviews happening. And once the festival is over, we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming, which isn't regular at all. I look forward to connecting with you again next time. Bye-bye for now.